¿Qué pasa, campeones? And welcome to the Churros y Tácticas Podcast. It is Tuesday, the 20th of April, and today marks a very, very special edition of your favorite Churros y Tácticas Podcast. Not only did Real Madrid drop 2 vital points in La Liga in their 0-0 draw against Getafe, allowing Barça once again to have the league within their own hands and the trophy within the grasp reach. But also, this Barça is now once again champion of the Copa del Rey for a 31st time. Barça, in the meantime, managed to pick up a wee trophy that I know a whole lot of people, in particular on this podcast, will want to shove aside and not shine a light on and not really talk about, because what interest does that have? It's only a Copa del Rey. I understand. It's a chupito. It's a little shot, as they say, or some say here in Spain. But in the meantime, all of that is really being clouded over. And the big shadow has been casted upon all that news, because in the midst of all that, Madrid losing points, Barça winning a Copa del Rey, this big dark cloud has casted upon us. And that cloud will be discussed on today's podcast without any filters, without anybody holding back any punches, any opinions or ideas for that matter. And here to discuss this with me is my man, your trusted Madridista voice and the founder of this podcast, Kiyan Sobhani. What's going on, Kiyan?
Oh, hey, it's my turn. I thought it was a 24-hour intro. I was waiting for my turn.
Why do you got to do that? Why do you got to do that always? Why do you have to interject with feeling already shoved aside and neglected? Don't you have enough podcasts where you have a voice?
No, it's cool. I thought it was the Diego Lorijn podcast today. I'm glad you gave me some airtime. Thanks, man.
I'm sorry to take too much of your limelight, Kiyan. It's Barça only won the Copa del Rey, so I thought a good intro was due. Mind you, I riffed at this one. This one was off the cuff as well. Nothing prepared.
No, I don't think you should be ashamed for winning Copa del Rey. I think it's a good thing to win if you're not winning anything else. It's better than nothing. So I think you should be proud. I congratulate you for that. I'm happy for you.
It only matters when Madrid wins it, right? Let's be honest.
No, it matters. It matters. It matters the same way I tell my son, hey, good job. It's better to be 5th place than last place. Good job. So,
wait. So Copa del Reyes are won by 5th places. Oh, I forgot.
No, it's great. Sorry, I shouldn't undermine it. It's great. I'm very happy for you. I'm very, very happy for you. And also, thanks for reminding me. I forgot that you guys won it. I've been so enraptured with this Europa Super League talk that football has become secondary at this point. Don't you feel that way, by the way? Honestly? No, let's be serious.
Well, like I said, there's no news whatsoever about Madrid dropping 2 points, vital points in the league. There has been, obviously, that happened over the weekend. At this point, what is the weekend? When Barça won the trophy, it's already Tuesday. I say that with a bit of hint of sarcasm, but no, of course, this is big news. We got to talk about this, and I can't wait to talk about it. It's the only thing that is being talked about, and for good reason. But I do hope we're going to talk a little bit more about other news as well.
Well, Real Madrid dropping 2 points. The reason that
let's start where the news started on the weekend, and that's Barça winning the Copa del Rey. Sorry.
Was that before Real Madrid's game? I honestly can't remember. Yeah, it was, because Real Madrid played Sunday.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so let's. Okay, I suppose. Let's talk about it.
Or if you don't want to talk about the game, let's talk at least about the value of it, because I find it very funny that it's being so pushed to the side and neglected and spoken about with such disregard or disdain or this kind of, I don't know.
No,
it's a weird. I feel like the podcast has started off weird, Kiyan. I was just getting a weird vibe.
No, I don't think
it is one of the 3 trophies that we're supposed to compete and fight for. Am I not correct?
No, you're correct. I think it's the reason it's being swept aside is not intentional per se. I think it's just because of what happened on Sunday night, and just basically where attention and eyes and I want to say ratings, but I feel dirty saying that, but like where everyone's eyes has shifted to is like they just want to hear everybody's thoughts about the Super League because it's consuming everything, and very little people are talking about football. Like if Real Madrid won, I don't think many people would have been talking about it. And actually, the Real Madrid the reason why Real Madrid dropping 2 points got a lot of discourse by the end of it was not even because of the league title race. It was because of the game itself. It was because it was further proof or like further pushback against the European Super League. And like, if you look at the teams that dropped points this weekend, whether it was Real Madrid, whether it was Tottenham, whether it was Arsenal, like all these teams who were supposedly the teams who are supposed to be untouchable for the Super League format. I mean, it got attention in that light, but yeah, let's talk about the Copa del Rey. I mean,
no. Now now we're gonna talk about the Super League.
Well, I'm to be honest, I'm really excited to talk to you about Super League. I've been talking about it
I can tell.
I've been talking about it for 3 days straight.
That is what our audience, what our people want to hear, and I almost feel stupid now to talk about the Copa del Rey. So, and it's not that I don't want to talk about the Super League, and it is a big topic. So, but I saw that you put something out, like you had an hour and a half pod yesterday talking about it. Am I right? I didn't get a chance to hear it, but I did see it came up in my YouTube feed.
So just to put it out there to make sure that I'm not hypocritical about talking about football, like talking about Super League over the actual football, and not just because Barca won Copa del Rey and stuff. Sunday night, half an hour before we even talked about the game, we just talked about the Super League. And then yesterday, instead of talking about the loanees, which we were supposed to, we spent half an hour talking about the Super League again. And I compiled that kind of 60 minutes total and put it on YouTube. And I think it's one of those things that I'm very conscious of wanting to get people to know my updated take on this, because it just changes a lot. It does. My mind doesn't change, but I just have fresh takes about this every day with the more the news that comes in. And I'm excited to talk about you with it, talk to you about it rather, because I haven't spoken to you about this at all. Like you're not one to really voice these things on social media. No. And you're so busy in your day job. And also, I think everyone wants to know your take, and I want to know your take. And I think this kind of ties into what you're going to say possibly, but one of the things I think we all felt was like, okay, so what are the players and coaches going to say about this? Will they feel kind of handcuffed to not say anything? I think the players were a little bit more vocal about it. I think Zidane, by not saying anything, actually said a lot in his sub-communication, in the way he said, this is the president's business, I have an opinion. And we kind of all know what that means. Pep Guardiola was quite candid about it. Klopp was, again, sub-communication and candid, the fact that, we weren't discussed on this. Like, we weren't. It told me a few things. It told me that they're going to manage their respective teams in the Super League if it goes ahead, but they also won't necessarily stand behind it either. So you work for Barca TV. I feel like if Pep can be candid about it, I feel like you can be candid about it too. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts on it are.
Putting me on the level as Pep. Whoa. Hey, you just made me feel real warm and good inside. Thank you for this spin.
And you have more hair than Pep. You're a level above.
Honestly, man, I felt very conflicted and confused ever since this news broke. Initially, I thought it was kind of a bad joke. And as time has progressed, it still continues to feel like a bad joke. As in, all this time I'm wondering, is this really real? Like, obviously we've seen the clubs put out official statements, but all I've seen so far, say from an official act kind of way, is Florentino appear on El Chriniguito for about an hour and a half, which is pretty damn, say, amateuristic. I felt that at the announcement of this league, it would kind of take place with maybe the heads of the 12 teams sitting around the table with Florentino in the middle, and maybe, some trophies in the back of all teams that are involved, maybe some briefcases with dollar bills hanging out. I don't exactly know what I was imagining. Maybe some cigar smoke in the background, and an official statement being broadcasted by the president of this newly created league called the European Super League. And we haven't seen any of the sorts. All we've seen is, again, these statements, everybody getting really, really worked up on Twitter, on news in England, the politicians getting involved. It's been madness. And again, all the while I'm wondering, okay, but what are we talking about really? And it's been vague. There's a lot of holes in this idea, and it's still just an idea. Even though Florentino Perez last night said on the Chriniguito, we want to start in August. What are you going to start? Where? With who? And what? Who's going to? Where can we watch it? I mean, and again, I'm saying all of this because all the while, I don't think it's that bad of an idea. And I guess that's where, I feel like there's not that much controversy, in my opinion, with regards to my club's position, because I kind of, things I've been hearing, I kind of like it. It clears Batis off a whole bunch of debt. It clears my club to start building that stadium, to maybe be in the talks again of. We are currently, but be really in the talks with signing big name players, and it sounds like that's it's a good deal for at least the club that I hold dear to my heart, that I work for and I support. Now, and we're gonna get into the more modest teams and the rich taking the rich, and I want to get into all that as well. But let me just press pause here on this again monologue to at least get your feedback and on what I've been sharing, I guess, until now.
Well, I suppose it's interesting that you think that's not a bad idea. I suppose I didn't really know how you felt either way, but I've had so many thoughts about this. Mm-hmm. I've expressed so many thoughts about this, and I just
what did you can you kind of like just give your take on? Did you also feel like there would have been more of an official announcement? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you get this point? What I'm trying to make? It's just felt surreal. It's felt surreal. It's not official.
Yeah. So
Florentino en el Chriniguito, Kiyan. Florentino en el Chriniguito. I don't know if you know the Chriniguito. I don't know if you ever sat there and watched it.
Never.
But it's
I've only seen clips on YouTube, like every now and then when I'm actually in Spain. Like my cousin will have it on TV in the background while I'm doing work, but never watched it seriously and actually actively, intentionally avoided it because I don't really believe it's real journalism, and it's kind of my way of boycotting it. Yesterday, I sold my soul and I took part in it because I had to.
There you go.
Yeah.
I did watch it.
I was going to ask you if you stayed up for it because I know it was pretty late in Spain, but.
I did not.
Okay, so you woke up to it.
I saw some this morning, yeah.
So my feeling is that, so to me, what Florentino said last night was very similar to a Jeff Bezos or a Mark Zuckerberg or like one of these famous rich people sitting in an interview and saying politically correct things that really is beneficial to his business and his club.
Yeah.
And and it was I think it's important to remind people that if you're mad about this for an ethical reason or a moral reason, good for you. But don't go pat yourself on the back thinking that you were supporting this ethically sound sport before this breakaway was announced, because you weren't. This is money in football, and greed has existed for decades and decades and decades 100%. And decades, for almost 100 years. I would like to say a full 100 years, but my knowledge of football history really goes back to the 50s. I can't really speak about what happened before that, but I will say at least the 50s.
When the Bosman rule came into play, that changed football and made it a money-making machine. I think that really kickstarted. That was like steroid hit sort of thing.
I mean, dude, go back to the even before that. Who do you guys think Santiago Bernabéu yesterday was? A great visionary, sure. A great businessman, sure. But also, like, his whole point was like, how can we make more money? How can we make more money? And go read the book about Alfredo Di Stefano that Ian Hawkeye wrote. That the clubs in Argentina, the clubs in Colombia, it was all about squeezing and squeezing and squeezing and getting the best and screwing the players over, and the players trying to fight back and get their piece of the pie. It always existed. So to me, the breaking point was really, I mean, this weekend in a way, but none of us can sit here and say UEFA and FIFA were doing this so well, and it was so, we were in this morally superior place before this breakaway was happening. To me, there's so many entities involved at this point and so many egos. From look at the podcast that we cover this league. There's the federation, there's the league, and see the bickering and the fighting. And none of us really are that clear on who's in charge of what. The corruption and greed between those two. Then you go back to the leagues, UEFA and FIFA coming out and saying like,
threatening.
Look at
ridiculous statements.
Look at PSG's statement on this. It's hilarious. Nasser Al-Khalifi, where I believe that's his name. So he comes out in the statement. He says we have to stick together. We have to support UEFA's values. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? UEFA's values?
Ridiculous.
So
he doesn't own the rights to the UEFA Champions League with being sports in Qatar, correct? No, that doesn't count. That's not it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what about Tebas as well? If we're going to start putting names, what about Tebas, who just recently a couple years ago, tried to arrange a match, El Clásico, Barça Girona over in, Miami?
Yep.
Or what about Rubiales, who's been taking the Spanish Supercopa to Saudi Arabia and sold off the rights for the next 2 years?
Exactly.
It goes down the same road.
Exactly.
It's money. And the rich, they feel hard done by the institutions, by the federations that your UEFAs, your FIFAs, etc. And you know what the thing is, Kiyan? I don't know. A great parallel has been drawn here in Spain with what happened a few years back, about 2 decades ago, with the Euro League. The basketball league that pulled off of what FIBA had installed, right? The what is it? Federation International Basketball. I don't know what.
Yes.
I forget what it stands for. Federal International Basketball Society. I don't know.
Probably not, but sure.
Definitely, probably not. And that has been a great success. That has been and when that was first announced, it was met with threats. It was met with fines. None of those fines were paid, by the way. And domestic leagues have been untouched. The ACB league is still the world's second best league, and behind the NBA. Regular schedule. Teams compete against each other from all ranks. And then you have the Euro League, which is the best teams in Europe playing against each other, and also a league, right? That then develops into a playoff series. It's great. I love the Euro League. It's more fun to watch than the ACB League, in my opinion. I like seeing good teams compete against each other. If I can see that more often, instead of UEFA's proposal, which is in 2024, let's add more teams to the mix. No, thank you. I choose quality over quantity.
Okay, so that opinion is probably going to draw some outrage from listeners, but that's okay in a way. I personally. And I didn't really know about the Euro League. The basketball league is basically this exact same idea until today, to be quite honest. Like before we started recording, I came across that because I don't really follow European basketball, so I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. But it's basically, I think it's 11 teams are grandfathered in forever, and the rest kind of they change every year. So it's basically the same idea. So people who support the Euro League, I don't know. I'd be curious to know what their opinion is, and do they enjoy it or not? And if you do enjoy it, maybe there's
it's been a great
hypocrisy
success
there as well. Okay, so I'm not necessarily head over heels this proposal, but I also, again, I'm not vehemently against it the way some others are. Partly because because I think it would be almost too hypocritical otherwise. There's been too much virtue signaling for me on social media and otherwise, and too much fake altruism of people who think they have the best interests of the sport by vehemently opposing this, not realizing what they're actually supporting leading up to this. And I also think, again, going back to the point of the different amount of entities involved, it got to a point for me basically that I think the clubs who are spearheading this, and now there are reports that maybe one or two teams in England have cold feet about it because of the backlash. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but maybe it is.
Chelsea and City.
Yeah.
According to the Times. Yeah.
So I think they just basically reached a point like, so you have your opinion, we have our opinion, all these people have their different opinions, and we're not seeing eye to eye. So we'll just branch out and make our own thing. And I think that a split like that is inevitable when you have so many entities that are corrupt in themselves and they just want, they're greedy in themselves. And now they're all of a sudden they're the ones kind of virtue signaling like, no, you can't break away. This is bad for football and stuff. I don't see it that way. Again, I'm not saying I fully endorse the idea of this Super League. I actually have liked the idea of a Super League. I'm not really sold on this version of it. Emery said something interesting today where he said, we need to kind of come together and come up with a solution collectively. He's right. I agree with that. I do also think it's easier said than done. And also, like, regarding the timing of this, like, they announced it basically knowing that UEFA was about to announce their Champions League format. So I think ultimately what happened was they knew what the new proposal was going to be. They didn't like it, so they basically derailed it by announcing their own thing. And I think, like, Florentino's, among the many things that Florentino said last night, some of it probably borderline, probably ridiculous. Some of them I thought had merit. One of the things he said was that we want better quality games more often. So people don't enjoy big team versus small team, although that is completely subjective. And many neutrals who have seen small teams beat big teams would disagree with that. But his point is we want the best teams playing against each other constantly. And, you know, whether these are the best teams or not, highly debatable. It's actually not debatable. Actually, Arsenal and Tottenham are not among this list, but they're there for financial reasons. We know that. Pep brought up a point. Pep brought up a good point. Why isn't Ajax invited to this thing? They have 4 freaking Champions League titles, and they, you know, I agree with that.
But Ajax could be one, sure. But that's the thing. We don't know the criteria that would make up the other remaining 5 teams, or, you know, 5. I say 5, but it could be 8, right? Right now there's 12 clubs. 15 are supposed to be the founding clubs, the founding members, and then 5 will be invited based on what criteria? We don't know. Could be Ajax, could be Dortmund, could be Marseille, could be Lyon, could be Celtic. I don't know. The thing is, like, and there's another thing that really irks me, or it strikes me as odd. Put it this way: this one is coming from Pep Guardiola, and I'm reading a quote of his on Sky Sports New Twitter. So it says, "It is not sport if the relationship between the effort and reward doesn't exist." Okay, let me just take that. Now, again, I'm reading headlines here, so I don't know the full context. I haven't watched the video, but let's take what he says here. So it's not sport if the relationship between effort and reward doesn't exist. What does he mean? Does that have to do with the fact that there's no relegation? I'm assuming he's alluding to that. If so, well, the reward is reaching the latter stages of the tournament. The reward is becoming champion, which surely has a healthy, I would imagine, financial reward, seeing already the amounts of money that Florentino is talking about, which will clear the debt of you know, all the clubs that we're talking about here, the big clubs. Now, I don't want to digress, but I don't want to get into the modest club conversation about the rich are getting richer and the poor staying poor, because I do have something to say about that, but it digresses too much from the point I want to make here. Effort and reward. Isn't that what it's all about? Are we going to say that the NBA is not competitive because no teams relegate? Well, there's clearly, you know, there's clearly a hierarchy, as in there's the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers, who are the big two franchises that have shared the vast majority of the trophies among them. Yet you still have teams competing year after year, going through playoffs and trying to get, the biggest stars, attract the biggest players. We're seeing, the league exploding in that sense right now with the Nets, an opportunity for them to become champion. You got the whole tanking. Well, the NBA's got its flaws and its benefits, but all in all, I would say I think it's a fantastically run league. And if the Super League is trying to model after, I think, what is a great blueprint for a league in the NBA, then listen, I'm for that. I don't, I don't feel I need to feel guilty or bad for admitting that, for wanting to see a Madrid, Chelsea, a Barca, Arsenal more often than say a Porto, Brugge, or again a Lyon maybe. Okay, debatable, but you get the point I'm trying to make here. And it's not to say that a Sevilla, Valencia wouldn't be able to make it. You just have certain clubs that I think has also given their track record in history. And here's where Pep, again, I find it odd that he says this when he works for a club that has become one of the big clubs in Europe because of a massive financial push. They were not amongst, the big clubs in Europe 10 years ago. Or, I don't know. As I get older, time flies. Should I say 15 years, 20 years ago? Neither was Chelsea, for that matter. Neither was PSG. And again, the reasons for PSG not being in this conversation is, for me at least, very clearly because Al Khalifi, and again, excuse me if I'm butchering that last name, the Sheikh, has interest in being sports, owning the Champions League rights, etc. So I think, and also if this goes ahead, PSG and Bayern will join. I have absolutely no doubt about that, neither. So
you brought up a lot of interesting points that need to be hit on. I think, look, I love the NBA, as I know you do as well. I have no real issues with the system there. There's no relegation system. It's just the best teams playing against each other. Now, it's true that smaller markets in the NBA are suffering. They really haven't solved that yet. So, like the issue of New Orleans not being able to fill seats and having to trade Anthony Davis because they just can't keep him. And teams like that will exist, and I think that's an issue that needs to be fixed somehow. But there is revenue sharing, there's salary caps. James Dolan can be.
That's why I paused, because I didn't want to go there. I wanted to make this point, but you're absolutely right, and I'm not saying it's perfect. You know what I mean? There is an argument to be held there. We need to have a conversation. I just think, all in all, it's not. Like no me desagrada. I don't find it an off-putting idea, this Super League with the best of the best on a regular basis. I don't think I can grow tired of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are like, you can't have Christmas every day. It's not your birthday every day. Okay, but all this time we've been happy and content with watching a Huesca Osasuna. No disrespect. Again, put some respect on the name. No disrespect. But I'd rather watch a Madrid Milan more often.
Yeah. I mean, so the problem is that Milan haven't been as great as they were in a long, long time, right? And so they're in this league grandfathered in. So if they have cycles where they suck, they're still going to be there. That's the issue. So I'm not opposed to the idea of a super league in principle. I actually think it's a good idea, and I would like to see that. But I think it needs to evolve from its current concept as it's currently designed. So, for example, like right now, as we speak, Chelsea fans are in the streets in London protesting this in the masses. There's one dude who has a sign up. He says, "We want our cold nights in Stoke." I mean, like, so part of
they're still gonna get it. They're still gonna get it. That's another thing. Yeah. The domestic leagues are not affected, Kiyan.
They're not. But I think here's where a flaw is in this design. Right now, if, let's say, I don't know, let's bring the La Liga example. Who's our Stoke? Maybe an away trip to Osasuna? That's a tough one.
Alaves.
Where?
Osasuna. Alaves, Osasuna.
Yeah.
Eibar.
Let's stick with Osasuna because El Sadr is like a historically difficult place to play in. Mm-hmm. And let's say if Real Madrid goes to Osasuna away Or no, you know what? Maybe not. Real Madrid is not a good example. Let's say if Valencia go to Osasuna away, if they can't qualify for a European zone, what's at stake in that game? Because you're either champion or not. So right now the problem is that, like, if people are playing for something, they're playing for a European spot or something like that, right? So if you take that away, what are you playing for? And like if Real Madrid is like 10 points behind Barcelona in the title race, and you know, and there's no real threat of them like not qualifying for Champions League, or let's say if Real Madrid are like 5th place, who knows? They don't care. They're gonna rest all their players for the Super League. I mean, that's where the flaw is. So that there's a divide there that needs to be solved. I think part of the problem here would be, part of the like solution that needs to be thought out is like, in order to fix this, you might need to go into a playoff system within the league itself, or just scrap the Champions League would have to cease to exist, and you'd have to just focus on Super League but expand the Super League. And I think that's probably what they want to do, is they want to make the Super League and get to a point where it's like the NBA-ABA merger, where the NBA just eats the ABA and the Super League eats the UEFA Champions League, because the Champions League just isn't successful anymore. I don't think Champions League and Super League can really coexist, because it's just not, it doesn't work. You have to have one or the other.
No, I agree. And that's why the threat is for UEFA and the Champions League. And I get that. I get that outrage. But the outrage I get, or I'm hearing mostly, is for domestic leagues. You're getting Johnson saying, Boris Johnson saying, I will not.
Yeah, he needs to stay out of this.
British football. It's like, dude, chill out. Premier League will still exist. The Premier League will still exist.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he doesn't have some kind of agenda. Like, he needs to just... Once we start getting to supporting the Prime Minister for chiming in like this, I feel like we're in a weird spot.
I'm just confused as to, am I lacking information or ability to process the information? Or are others, again, more privy to information that has flown over my head? Because as far as I'm concerned, domestic leagues will not be affected. As to your question or your point, which teams would join? Well, again, we don't know the criteria. So what are those 5-8 teams that could be selected for the tournament? What is that based on? Is it the Dutch champion, like I said before? Is it the Scottish champion? Is it then your Sevillas, Valencias? With your point to Huesca or Osasuna, again, when were they in the Champions League conversation ever? Really? Never. I'm sorry, never. So your Alaveses, what do they have to fight for? Well, it could be a Europa League. It could be a second Super League for a kind of Europa League thing. Mind you, also, those coaches nowadays often don't want to qualify for a European league, because a European competition, because it distracts them from other commitments in the league to remain in the first division.
I mean, one of the managers literally told you that
very often,
right?
For the more modest teams. Huh?
One of the managers of La Liga team actually told you that.
Yes. Machin told me this. Pablo Machin. These were literally his words. So, again, I'm like, okay, it's not gonna happen. You're still gonna see Barca roll up, because I get the argument or the fear of some. For example, when the whole Barca Girona talks in Miami were happening, the Girona fans were outraged. They were saying, well, we want to see Barca pay a visit to our stadium. Okay, it's still going to happen. The Beatles are still going to roll around in town once a year. Relax, folks. And again, what is the criteria based on for your Valencias, your Sevillas, etc.? I don't know, but I would assume they have a good shot of entering, because historically they've been up there. It's just that financially, yes, I guess they lack the financial backing. It's always been a rich world. That's just that's capitalism. It's globalization. It sucks. I mean, there's many unjust things that we can be angry about and pick about, but we shouldn't just hold our conversation about this Super League and aim all our anger. There are bigger issues when it comes to poverty and the distribution of wealth than the fucking Super League. So that's a different conversation to be held.
I mean, if you really want to go deep on this and piss a lot of people off, you could tell them to cancel their Amazon Prime membership and go support your local local store instead of contributing to that monopoly. I'd be curious to know, like, Bayern and Dortmund backing out of this. Their statements were that they backed out. I wonder, and I don't have any proof of this either way, and not an assumption, but I've just asked the question. They have the 50+1 rule where the fans can vote out of this. Would they have accepted had they been in full control of that decision? Maybe not. Don't know.
Interesting. Something to think about. I don't know. I think I would be inclined, to the yes. You're talking so much money, Kiyan, which is another thing. Where does Florentino get these numbers from? Is this just plucked out of thin air?
Which ones?
Well, the numbers that you're talking. You're talking billions, to be repartido, to be distributed amongst these very rich clubs, the wealthiest clubs in the world, that again would, wipe out debts, Kiyan. Debts that were created because of excruciatingly bad management, but also the pandemic, and has put football in a very dangerous, precarious position where, the big teams are struggling. And when I hear Florentino say when 2024 rolls around, the game will be dead, I wonder, what does he really mean by that? What do I have to imagine here? I don't like to imagine Barca, in an AC Milan 2.0 kind of state. We've discussed that plenty of times, right? There's a real risk in that. And of course, here you can argue, well, again, to the point that I made earlier, Barca should have never paid such high wages. Almost 80% of all their income goes to wages. Outrageous. Transfer numbers, outrageous. Mourinho gets fired yesterday, earns 20 million, outrageous. There was a great article in the Dutch newspaper that my dad shared with me where they added up all of the money that Mo has earned by being fired. And it totaled up to 100 million euros.
It's crazy.
Just for getting fired, Kiyan. There's stupidly much money in football that is being very irresponsibly, used, spent, and a lot has to change. But again, there's just so many conversations. There's missing information. I like what you said about virtual signaling, right? Am I saying that? Virtual signaling?
Yeah.
Which is a very good point. It's been outrageous, Twitter, and I feel like you said that my opinions are going to stir some controversy. I feel like I'm just using plain logic, and I haven't really seen much of that on Twitter.
Very little. It's pure emotion. Even the journalists who were trying to give Florentino a lesson in economics on Twitter yesterday was insane. Florentino Perez, an economics lesson.
Okay.
So here's again, if you really want to go deep, you can really, really start to do scathing takes on the hypocrisy of all this. First of all, myself personally, I wouldn't dare to even try to be hypocritical about this, because my whole life is based on trying to make more money. I have a Patreon page set up for both my podcasts, one with you, one for Managing Madrid. I'm trying to make money off this sport. I'm not. It's not like I have an umbrella with every other podcast where we do revenue sharing and we're all helping each other. All the writers for The Guardian, they ask for donations, and all these publications who have their content behind a paywall. Are you going to all stop doing that and pretend money doesn't matter? So, and then and if you're saying that the clubs don't have a right to do this, then you're saying you're an anti-capitalist, which is fine, but just come out and say that as well, because then you're starting to go against capitalism, which I'm not going to say if I don't care if you're anti-capitalist, whatever you are, but come
Again,
out and say that and tell us all, because I want you to really call out yourself for this as well. This is making my blood boil a little bit. These are things that I feel like if I said on Twitter, I think there would be mass outrage. I think there's a lot of emotion, generally speaking, in right now.
Your main and sorry for asking. I don't want you to repeat your tweets, but generally speaking on Twitter, what has your sort of, I guess, outward opinion be so far? Is it kind of going against the grain, or have you been agreeing, I guess, with what you've been seeing and reading?
I've basically been not endorsing the Super League, but I've basically been just trying to bring people's attention to the hypocrisy, and what we were supporting prior to this is not any better from an ethical standpoint than where we are now with the breakaway stuff. And I think people are really, really too much stuck into this idea that they're doing the ethically right thing, opposing this thing. And opposing it. I just don't feel like that's the right take. Pep
is saying.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, now flipping through it, Pep is also, another quote popped up. Pep is also saying it's not sport if it doesn't matter if you lose. Where does it not matter to lose in a Super League scenario? Like, it still matters. You're not going to be a champion. You will not reap the rewards, the financial rewards, or even, the global recognition, say from a pride perspective, that kind of reward, the recognition, if you lose. Like
no, but I think Pep's point,
this notion that like it doesn't matter. I get it, the relegation thing. I get it.
Yeah.
But still, like it's a different format. We're looking at an NBA format. Is this controversial because of the format? Is that what it is? Is people cannot compute that there are leagues out there that function differently. In fact, are very successful, very entertaining, and global products. Everywhere in the world, they watch the NBA. It's one of the biggest, the most followed leagues in the world.
Yeah, I think Pep's point is definitely about the meritocracy, and that it won't matter if you come like 12th in the league because you're still going to be in your Super League if you're already grandfathered in. And it's the exclusivity that has people upset. And I think for them to change their mind on that, it would take, like, to be honest, like decades of like an NBA style system where people are just like, oh, okay, I guess this is the way it works. Again, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, that's Pep's point, and that's the fans' point, and that's where the clash is, because they're just not really used to a system like this. And I'm not saying you have to be used to the system like this. If you don't like it, that's fine. I still think that this idea needs to evolve. But I wanted to say this. Yesterday was the first time I felt like the Super League idea, there's a way for this idea to collapse and not happen. And today I actually feel a little bit stronger than that. My take on Sunday night was that I think everyone will eventually cave into the idea that they have to join this, like ride the wave, join it. If you can't beat it, what's the expression? If you can't beat them, join them, or something like that.
Yeah. Tal cual.
I feel like that's probably what's going to happen. But I do feel like the backlash today is even hotter. And I do wonder eventually, like, now these teams, reports of them getting cold feet. And this goes back to your original question, Diego, at the beginning of the podcast. Who is going to fill up this league? Because I'm not sure how they're going to fill it up. They're not even at their 15 teams at quota that they want in order to go ahead with the 15 teams that are the quote-unquote elites or whatever. How are they going to fill up this team? Because every single team has come out and said, we're not a part of this. So that's the challenge they're going to have to go ahead with this. And I'm not sure how they're going to find those teams. It's a question I have, and I think it's a question you have too. Maybe it's a question they have too. I don't know if they've figured that one out yet.
Are you hearing, not to digress from what you're saying, but are you hearing my son in the background doing the churros?
No. Can you bring him on?
Well, he's in the kitchen. The door's actually closed, but he's been screaming it, and I would mute my mic, going, "Stop saying that!" And then he's been continuing to say it for a while.
You can't tell him to stop saying churros. That's like telling him to stop breathing. That's like what we want. We want these kids to be brainwashed into saying churros.
Yeah, dude. But It's, you know what, I think as well, man. I think at some point they're gonna come to their senses. They'll come to some sort of consensus as well. This is not the last. I don't think it's gonna happen in August already. Papa Flo did mention, right? He said he was willing to wait a year or something.
Oh, really? I missed that.
But I don't think it's the last that we hear from it either, man.
No. I don't know. I mean, we could really exhaust this if we can, if we haven't already. I mean, Cadiz is going to wear specific shirts tomorrow with a message. I think it's something like football, or it's for the fans or something. I can't remember what the message is.
Like we've been seeing in England.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Breaking news of 2 minutes ago from Dan Rowan of BBC News. He says, I understand Chelsea are now preparing documentation to request withdrawing from the ESL. That's a huge development. I mean, that in itself, like once people start withdrawing, it's maybe others will withdraw too.
We'll see. We'll see. The weird thing, now we're going to see a little mini Brexit happen, and then the money starts being flown around. You'll see how they're going to come crawling back. And mind you, like I don't want to be, I'm not an opposer of this idea. I think that has become clear. I don't want to be neither a poster child and a cheerleader for it neither. I have many questions, and I hope I've expressed those on this podcast. Mm-hmm. A lot of things need to be cleared up. I think I've been critical as well with how, the organization of this. I'm very, very much questioning this. Just how real is this? How much have they thought about this? How much has this been thought through? Because so far the presentation is falling flat on the face. Like when you're announcing a new league and with all these big teams and whatnots, come on, man. Like, be a little bit more professional and less amateuristic about it, because it's been, from a PR standpoint, in that sense, it's been a failure. And the backlash and uproar has been understandably, I think, to a certain degree, has to be understandable. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also want to just say I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not endorsing it either necessarily, because I don't think they've done this the right way. I kind of understand that maybe they felt there was no other way to do it because they just weren't going to get everyone on their side. In that case, I guess you have to really question it. And if you can't pull it off, by the way, at this stage, and you're not going to get what you want, you look really bad because you've just made a million enemies in the process. A lot of your own fans have turned on you.
I know. Yeah.
And that's the risk you've taken. And so let's see how this unfolds. Again, I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
In the meantime, I Liga, and we got a lot of games to look forward to. So hopefully the football and all of this will not be, say, overlooked for much longer neither, because this title race is heating up and is more exciting than it's ever been since I can remember, really.
One interesting thing that I'd be curious about is, like, because there's so many clubs against this and Mukadi's wearing the message on the shirt, I'd be curious to, like, if they decided to protest it by not playing at all, what would happen? Because the leagues themselves are against the ESL. Would they have the balls to not punish those teams? I want to see that scenario. I just want to see what happens. Curious.
I don't want to see that. Oh, man. We already went through a pandemic, Kiyan. We don't need more chaos and drama. Please, sir. Can we just play out this league and then let the summer do whatever it has to do?
I think we're past the point of no return with the drama thing.
We already had a paron. I don't need another restart where Madrid starts winning absurd games thanks to the referee, okay? Plus,
I'm not going to bite on that.
Have I talked about the fact that Florentino will be the president of this league?
That's true.
At no point has that been addressed by this culé yet. So,
All right. Well, you have. I'm sure you want to have some dinner with your kids, and yeah. So, thanks, my man. We'll be back Friday.
Yes.
Are we going to be back Friday?
Yeah, we will be back on Friday. Okay. Yes, sir.
We'll have more developments. Patreon.com/Churros y Tácticas if you want access to the Friday show And we will see you guys then. And in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Churros Tácticas for more dialogue and banter. Yeah. Thanks, Diego. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, dude. Peace.